Hi everyone, good afternoon and thank you very much for joining us today at Addressing Imbalance Live. Hopefully you can all hear me and see myself and Fayyadh okay, but just pop in the chat if there's any problems with our Wi-Fi and connection and stuff. It's really great to welcome you to the first of our Addressing Imbalance Live events, and thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be here. Whenever I was looking at the registration list, I recognised a lot of names people who'd attend our Addressing Imbalance Live event back in September, as well as lots of new names. So you're all very, very welcome and thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Olivia. I work within the social sector engagement team at Big Society Capital, and I also lead on Good Finance's Addressing Imbalance programme. So for those of you who are not familiar with Good Finance, we are a user-led platform and we exist to be a trusted source of information for charities and social enterprises and community groups on social investment. And the Addressing Imbalance programme launched back in 2020 in recognition of the fact that access to social investment is not a level playing field, and there are many structural and systemic inequalities, which mean that some people face greater barriers to accessing finance than others. And through this programme, we really seek to engage, listen, learn, and take action to support a diverse range of people and organisations in their social investment journeys. We wouldn't be able to do this work without the help and support of partners across the sector, some of whom are in the audience today. So I just wanted to shout out thank you to our partners, the All Saints Action Network, BASE, the Caribbean African Health Network, Create Your Table, Hatch, Sisters in Business, the Entrepreneurial Refugee Network, the Social Innovation Partnership, Ubele and Common Call, and all the other organisations that we work with. And a huge thank you to our speakers who've come along today to support with this session as well. We've got Dilys from Pathway, Ishita from Good Finance, and Caroline from Contento Homes. But before we get started, I'm just going to introduce my colleague Fayyadh, who will explain a little bit more about the Addressing Imbalance community, how it came about and why we're hosting this event today.
Thank you, Olivia. Hi, everyone. Apologies to my table, who I had to unfortunately leave at short notice. Hope you're all well, and it's great to have you here today. So I'm Fayyadh. I work within the social sector engagement team and also support on the Addressing Imbalance program. My background is actually in community development, working across the front line, working on the front line across various social issues with charities and social enterprises alike. As Olivia's mentioned, I'd like to start off with a little bit of background on why we're hosting today's event. So many of you attended our Addressing Imbalance live event in September last year, and Addressing Imbalance community was born from a direct request from the audience to create a space for leaders to network, learn, and engage and make connections. We took on board your feedback and suggestions and wanted to demonstrate our ongoing commitment to create spaces for our community to collaborate, learn about new opportunities and hear from leaders in the sector who have taken on social investment to help support their mission. We believe that social investment should be accessible to people from all communities and backgrounds. However, we don't hold all the answers, and we will continue our work with you, our community, to ensure this space is equitable for all. At Good Finance, everything we do is user-led, and embedding user voice is a huge aspect of my role. I'd like to play a short video which explains a little bit more about the steps we're taking to help tackle some of the barriers to social investment. Olivia, I don't think there's any sound coming through.
Sorry about that. Bear with me 1 second. Is that working now?
Communities across the UK are facing barriers to accessing social investment. These barriers can be experienced differently by different people.
Unlike more traditional grant funding, social investment may be less understood and sometimes viewed in a negative light. This could be due to cultural or religious values or widespread misconceptions around how it works.
An apprehension of investors or uncertainty around the power balance or role investors play.
Knowing where and how to access relevant guidance or business support, a lack of understanding of financial jargon, and the different types of social investment.
Difficulty securing funding, knowing where to go, a fear of being rejected, and capacity challenges. Time is often the biggest barrier to exploring or applying for investment.
At Good Finance, we seek to be the trusted source of information for charities, social enterprises, and community organisations on social investment. So how can we help tackle some of these barriers?
Through our case studies, blog posts, podcasts, and events, we will ensure that our content is representative of people and communities throughout the UK, with a particular focus on showcasing the work of organisations led by or working with people who have experienced marginalisation.
We're building an online community to support leaders. This is a place where you can join dedicated sessions, ask questions, share learnings, and connect with people from across the social impact space.
Lived experience is priceless, and we believe that a diverse range of voices need to be in decision-making positions. Investment Committees of the Future is a good finance program which seeks to provide a pathway for people with lived experience of leading organisations tackling societal challenges to join investment committees.
We'll work together to understand how more funding can be channeled into diverse communities and accelerate positive change. We'll be transparent around our progress and continuously strive to do better. Why is this so important?
We see a future where people of all backgrounds have equal opportunities. It's time to think big, make space, and fund equitably.
Join us on our journey. To find out more, visit www.goodfinance.org.uk/addressing-imbalance. Cool. Thanks very much, Fayyadh, for sharing this. So before we get started, we've got a really exciting program today. We'll start off with Ishita, who's the Senior Project Manager at Good Finance, who'll share an update on some of the programs and projects that we've been working on at Good Finance over the last couple of months. We've got Dilys, who's the Project Director of the Pathway Fund, and she'll be giving more of an update on the progress of the fund and what it seeks to achieve and the goals and objectives for 2023 and beyond. And finally, we're joined by Caroline, who is CEO of Contento Social Homes, who received social investment using the Recovery Loan Fund with Flexible Finance. And Caroline will be talking about how they purchased their first property to provide a permanent refuge home for women facing homelessness. So we've got, once we've had the presentations, we'll have plenty of time for kind of Q&A and discussion. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Unfortunately, we can't see your faces on the screen at the moment, but we do have the Q&A and the chat box. I know most of you have been using the chat box already. And please do introduce yourselves, tell us where you're based, what your organisation is and why you're joining us today. If you've got any questions for the speakers, please use the Q&A box at the right hand side. It's just under the chat function. So then we can see kind of what questions you want to put to the speakers at the end of the session. You can also upvote questions, so please do use that function, and we'll obviously start with the most popular questions. When we get to the Q&A and discussion section, we can bring you on stage. So if you'd like to ask a question directly or be part of the discussion, please do just raise your virtual hand and we can bring you onto the stage at that part. And then at the end of the session, we'll go back to the networking lounge. So it was great to get speaking to some of you at the beginning of the session. So there'll be time at the end for networking. The end time of the session is 2:00, but we will keep the networking lounge open. So if you do want to carry on conversations, you can do that. So I think that's enough for me. So without further ado, I will introduce our first speaker. Ishita is the Senior Project Manager at Good Finance and founder of Spark Insights. So if you bear with me, I'm just going to pop her up on stage.
Hi everyone, thanks so much for the intro, Olivia, and thank you to all of you today for being here. It's quite weird being on this virtual stage, I won't lie, so bear with me because I'm still getting used to this whole virtual stage business. But I got to meet lots of you at the Addressing Imbalance live event last year, and it's really, really lovely to see some familiar faces and some different faces again here today. So as Olivia said, I am the Senior Project Manager over at Good Finance. I've been at Good Finance for just over 4 years now. And alongside that, so I work part-time at Good Finance, and I also part-time run a social enterprise outside of my role at Good Finance, where we do a lot of kind of research and training work around anti-racism and anti-oppression. So very, very close to my heart is tackling barriers and systemic issues in the social investment sector. I wanted to do an update today on a new Good Finance programme that we've launched called Investment Committees of the Future. So some of you may be familiar with what investment committees are, but if you're not, investment committees are basically the decision-making committees in the social investment sector, and the people that sit on investment committees are really central to all decisions on whether social investment deals go ahead or not. And who's in the room and who sits on an investment committee really matters. But due to the commercial sensitivity of the information that's often discussed on an investment committee, a lot of them happen behind closed doors. And it can be really difficult for those on the outside to understand and influence the decisions that are making and that are being made, and the decisions that investment committee members are made. And the goal of investment committees of the future is to be able to bring more skills, different experiences, and different lived experiences to investment committees. So something that we absolutely recognise is that having diversity and lived experience of people that have worked within the social enterprise and charities sector, and people with different perspectives on investment committees is absolutely essential for well-balanced decision making. So Investment Committees of the Future is our brand new e-learning programme, and it has been specifically designed to support individuals who want to build the skills to be on an investment committee in the sector, but they might not have kind of the financial knowledge or the confidence or the full understanding of what it means and what it entails. So over the course of Investment Committees of the Future, the e-learning programme covers, what an investment committee actually is, how it works, how decisions are made on investment committees, what kind of skills you need to be a member, how you read an investment committee paper, and what the pathways are for joining an investment committee. So it's essentially 8 modules of very interactive online learning, lots of videos, quizzes, interactive exercises. You go at your own pace. You have 12 weeks to complete the course from when you start. And you'll have a tutor from the Good Finance team that you can sort of email to ask questions, and you can request one-on-ones. And we'll also be doing sort of virtual peer networking sessions where you'll get to meet other people doing the programme, but also existing investment committee members. So this is a programme that we've been working on for quite some time. I think we sort of originally had the idea almost 3 years ago. But you know, it's taken us time, especially in the backdrop of the pandemic and everything else that we've been doing, to really develop this and bring this idea to life. And we're really, really excited about it because this is one of our programs that looks at kind of a different systemic barrier, and it looks at the gap in representation and lived experience at that decision-making level. And we think it's really, really critical to address that gap and to improve diversity and lived experience on investment committees in order to actually build an equitable social investment sector. So I would just pop the link for the course into the chat where you can find out more about it. We've just launched our inaugural cohort last week actually, but we'll be doing kind of lots more over the course of the year. So if it's something that you'd like to do, which is influence decision making on investment committees in the social investment sector, definitely recommend you check it out. You'll also see we've got a couple of other e-learning courses. One of them is called Social Investment Unpicked, and it's sort of a deep dive into what social investment is and the journey of, you know, what is it, how does the sector work, what are all the different types of products, what are all the different types of investors, how do I measure outcomes, and if you want to dive deeper and build your knowledge of social investment further, then would really recommend that one. And thank you to Susan, who in the chat has said highly recommend the Good Finance courses. I'm biased, but I do as well. I actually almost kind of did investment committees of the future as a learner, because it's something that I am really interested in, is actually being part of an investment committee. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. So that's the main update from me today. I will say we've got a couple of other exciting projects and things coming up over at Good Finance. Some of you will be familiar with our website and the investor directory, where you can go to search for social investors in the sector. This year, we're also going to be working on building our advisor directory, where you'll be able to go to search advisors that can support you with all manner of things, whether that's business planning or capacity building or financial modelling. And we're really looking forward to building that advisor directory this year. So stay posted on that one. And then finally, just to say, if you haven't already signed up to the Good Finance newsletter, that is the best place to go to stay posted on all sort of general Good Finance updates. And that is all from me. I believe up next we have Dilys joining to give us an update from Pathways. So I will hand back over to Olivia and Dilys.
Hi there, good afternoon everyone. I am just going to share my screen. I've got a presentation, a quick slide deck. Just bear with me. Okay, I hope you can see my screen. Olivia, could you give me a quick shout? Just make sure that everyone can see. I will assume that everyone can see my screen. Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you all and to be a part of the community. The last time the pathway was discussed, it would have been in September last year with Kunle Ololode from Voice for Change England. And so I'm here as project director. I've just joined the Pathway Fund itself. A bit about me. I've always worked in the third sector. Over the last 17 years, I'm working in community development and enterprise, both in the UK and on the continent, African continent, as well as working in funding, design, strategy, delivery, and also philanthropy research. I'm a researcher in private philanthropy focused on African and African diaspora community. In terms of Pathway, since its launch in November 2022, we've been really busy. For those of you who are new to Pathway and what we do. We are all about and focus on racial equity in social investment. The conversation about Pathway has been, long time. Over the last 8 years, we've been talking about Pathway and the need for catalysing opportunities for Black and racialised communities who are often, left behind and unable to access alternative forms of finance. In terms of the 3 areas that we focus on is enterprise development, asset acquisition, learning and influence. And of our 3 pillars, what we want to see from enterprise development, what success is for us is that more Black and minoritized-led organizations are accessing investment, are thriving and sustaining themselves. Around assets acquisition, we want to see more Black and minoritized communities controlling and owning their own assets, generating longer-term income, community wealth, as well as impact. Learning and influence, we're aware that although there is some data around how Black and racialised communities are accessing social investment, there is very little out there comparatively. And so what we want to see is the impact investing sector mainstream racial equity in all its activities and is an active partner in achieving racial justice in financing. I'm just going to talk through quickly our 3 pillars because it explains what we've been doing and what we will be doing over the next year and a half. Around enterprise development, what we are doing is investing in organisations and launching pilots. So from spring this year, we will be launching pilots supporting up to 12 Black and minoritized-led organisations with enterprise development and co-creating investment products. We'll be working alongside those organisations for a year. And with the co-creation, it's about looking at the initial investment made available to the organisations and developing, what the outcomes will look like, as well as coming out with investment products that best suits the communities and the enterprises themselves. Under enterprise development, we'll also be launching a fund managers incubator programme. And for that, we'll be working with up to 4 Black and minoritized fund managers and first-time fund managers. We'll be working with the fund managers for over a year around investment readiness support. They'll also be supported in how to leverage income, and we'll be giving initial capital in terms of their ability to do their work and to test how they leverage that income. With the fund managers, we'll be seeking fund managers who are already working or have background interests in the communities that we're here to support. On our next pillar, assets acquisition, we will be conducting research in this area starting in the next couple of months. And the research will look at the applicability of asset acquisition models in acquiring assets for Black and minoritized communities. There are many models out there, and what we are keen to do is to actually review them in terms of how it suits the different types of Black minoritized communities and enterprises. In terms of the lens we're taking, our focus will be on community wealth building and community-owned models. Alongside that research, we will be calculating the returns and risks of asset acquisition models. And the purpose of this is so that we can come up with various models that better meets the needs of communities in terms of them accessing finance. Learning and influence is important to us, and so we'll be conducting research to find investment funds led by people of colour in the UK. What we have found is that, again, very little research or mapping, wide-scale mapping has been done to find all of the investment funds led by people of colour. And what we'd like to do is to categorise them based on the types of funds, the areas of focus, and where the funds are coming from, as well as the motivations and ambitions behind those. In terms of all of the pilots, with enterprise development and assets acquisition. In short, we'll be funding up to 16 organizations and individuals. And so for us, generating learning evidence is key to us, and we'll be doing that with the pilots, evaluating them, publishing them, and coming back to share learning. We're doing this also to test our theory of change. At our launch, for many of you who were there, you would have heard what our theory of change is about. And whilst it's all good having a theory of change, we are keen to test it. Does it work? And so this year is all about those initial investments and 2 key areas of research so that we could refine that theory of change. And that is us in a snapshot. In terms of this year, certainly first 6 months until June, we will be launching those pilots and we'll be communicating how those pilots are going. A big chunk of the 6 months will be co-designing with the organizations that we will be partnering with. And an overarching focus for us is around building a fund and building partnerships. We are a new fund with a great advisory board. And so, huge thanks to Big Sight Capital, Access, and Social Investment UK, all of our partners who are on board. And we're also seeking wider partnerships and really co-design, and the launch will be key for us. As I say, 3 programs, 16 organizations. If there are any questions at all, please do pop them in the chat, or please join me at the table in one of the break time sessions. There is a lot of work that flows under this, and I can talk about it all day. And so I will close here. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dilys. So I will pass on now to our third and final speaker, Caroline from Contento Homes. Bear with me 1 second. And please do share your questions in the chat for our speakers, and we'll go to the Q&A after Caroline's presentation.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can all see me and hear me. Right, I'm just going to share my small presentation, and then I'll take it from the window. This one, and beginning. Okay, right. Yeah, so I'm just going to introduce myself. So my name is Caroline Pansy. I am the CEO and director and founder for Contento Social Homes. So Contento Social Homes is a specialist domestic violence refuge provider for women fleeing from domestic violence. We've been running for about 3 years now, and obviously our clients are the domestic violence victims and their children. The model of our payments, we are paid by the local authority via the Birmingham exempt housing benefit. We do charge our clients a small fee service charge weekly, just to support with the bills and their support. We are a community interest company, and we have a board comprised of 5 members, and the skills within our board are accounting, recruitment, housing compliance, and pastoral skills, and training and education. Okay. So I've just obviously been asked to share about our experience in exploring social investment. So we sometime last year, we had one of our refuge spaces that we would normally rent. So what we do, we lease out buildings from landlords. So we had one for our buildings that we leased we were given a notice while we had our clients in there. So we had the option to try and move out our clients and find them elsewhere, or try and find a way of securing the property. So we then approached the Social Business Invest for an investment. We told them our story, what had happened, and they were quite keen to work with us and find an investment for us to purchase the property. So what really led us to look for this type of investment was that we wanted, number one, financial stability. Number two, we wanted the security of tenure. We wanted to ensure that our clients don't have to be moved around every time that a landlord needs to give us any notice or anything like that. And also, probably also obviously addressing the housing need. And in the future, we're looking at exploring social investments as a business progression in a way, because the types of accommodation that we have at the present moment are shared accommodation for our ladies, but we are looking that in the future, if we can find ways that we can find smaller properties that ladies can move on, and this will be called like dispersed properties, so that at least one family doesn't have to share with other people. At the present moment, it's shared spaces. So mainly that's our reason for looking into social investment. Okay, so what did the process look like was we approached SIB. So obviously there was we made an application via an online form. Then we were shortlisted, I believe, and then we were set up with the relationship manager. So the relationship manager got in touch with us just to find out a little bit more about our business, our model, how we operate, where our funds come from. They are also asked to look at our financial forecasting assumptions, our annual accounts for the past 2 years, and our financial management policies. They then obviously made an assessment of what we presented before them, looked at the social impact and value and the demand for our services and market. Then they put forward our case towards the investment committee to make a decision, and then we were obviously granted and some investment to buy the property. So why did we decide this was the right option for us? So flexible. So the financing that we got was a flexible finance, so it wasn't restricted funds. It was quite flexible what we could use it for. But obviously, because at the particular time, we wanted to buy the property, so it was quite good. And then the other good thing about it is that it had a part loan and part grant options to it. So with the fund that we got was part loan and part grant, which made it quite attractive to us. Also, that it was a social investment, which meant that the investor was getting social value. And we'd also, when we received the notice, we looked at high street lending. So in a way, in comparison, especially taking into consideration that we were getting part grant, part loan, this was looking cheaper. So what we used the loan for was obviously to buy the property. While midway through the investment the committee, we also realized that we needed a van to transport our ladies and for our maintenance. So we then requested further funds, which were also granted as well. But also what was very good was that we were also paired up now with a specialist in the field who was giving us support and guidance and mentorship. And also we were also encouraged to work with a specialist accountant so that we could refine our financial management policies. Okay. So approaching the only investor that we've actually approached so far was the social business investor. It was always filling in their form online, and then what we borrowed from them was 130,000. With the interest rate was about 7.9, and then we were also given support in the application process and the putting the information together by Ubele. to put all the information together in terms of like the financial forecasting and the modeling of the business. Okay, so the pros and cons of getting a social investment. For us, we felt that obviously it was better compared to high street borrowing. The processes was less vigorous. I suppose this is relative because we had nothing else to compare with. So we thought it wasn't, because we got the support as well. So we thought it was not as vigorous as it would have been, and the fact that we were actually adding social value as well. The cons, I think, was that we were not quite aware of this social investment before, maybe because we only knew in the business. We've only been operating 3 years, so we didn't feel that it was widely advertised. So we just bumped into this information from a local voluntary service service that sends out like a newsletter once a week. But we weren't sure where to look for any more investors if we were looking for in the future. But I'm quite glad I've seen a few on this platform today. Like I said, we had no comparison, so we didn't know what would it have been like. And then the investment committee, one of the things to consider if you're to look into social investment is that obviously committees sit once in a while, so sometimes once in a month in our case. So if the need is urgent, maybe you'll have to wait until the next investment committee sits again. Okay. All right. Any challenges that would want to share along the way? So like I said, we're new to social investment, so I think the challenges that came up, we were able to kind of like deal with them because we're getting support from our relationship manager and from Ubele. So we were quite supported. So we felt that the process wasn't as bad because we had the support of the two organizations. Yeah. So any advice to anyone who's thinking of taking on social investment? I would say probably go ahead, because for us it's been worthwhile because we've got our first asset, and we feel like we're financially secure in a way that we've got the building. As we're paying off the loan, but we've got the grant which we don't have to pay off for that building. So we felt actually it was quite good. And also the fact that we had all these support all around us as well, we felt that it's something that is worthwhile, worth looking into if any of the leaders here is thinking about taking investment. Yeah. So yeah, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, I'm pretty sure that you, like Olivia said, you can put them on the chat and then I'll probably be able to answer if you have any. Thank you so much. Back to you, Olivia.
Sorry, Caroline, still getting used to this platform myself, but thank you so much for your presentation. That was great. And I've seen a few questions coming in, but if you do have any more questions, please do pop them in the chat. Before we move on to the Q&A, I just kind of wanted to do a little bit of a sense check of where people are in their social investment journey. So I've seen a couple of people have already answered the poll, but I'm going to pop up on stage. If you can answer the poll, I think if you go onto the right side just below Q&A, you should be able to answer it there. I'm just keen to know what your experience of social investment is. I know there's some investors and funders in the audience, but for anyone who's attending from kind of a social enterprise or a charity perspective, have you explored social investment? Is it something that's quite a new concept to you, or have you kind of already been through that process? Just keen to know kind of where people are in their journey. It's interesting. So it's quite we've kind of got a spread across the audience of people having experience of taking it on before. But yeah, quite an even mix of kind of between people being new to social investment. I'll leave that poll open for a little while so you can carry on answering. Okay, I'm just going to bring back our speakers to the stage and we'll go into some of the questions. As I say, please do continue to put questions in the chat. And if you do want to come on stage, just raise your virtual hand at the bottom.
Hi everyone. Thanks so much to all the speakers who took the time out to share their segment. Just like to get questions now from the floor. I know there was one particular question in the Q&A, but please feel free to carry on using the Q&A section if you wanted to add in any questions. But yeah, I guess I'd like to start off by asking the panel the question from Tim Soul in regards to what speakers felt, in their opinion, is the most common barrier organizations face when trying to access social investment. So I believe he's really interested to hear your different varying views. So I'd just like to ask maybe Caroline, maybe yourself, seeing that you've just spoken and shed light on this, what would you say has been, I guess, the most common barriers that organizations face when trying to access social investment?
I'll probably say, I don't know, maybe lack of knowledge. From my own perspective, lack of knowledge, lack of understanding what it is and where to access it. And then for us, I think one of the things that we kind of like got quite a lot of support in was the financial modeling and the financial forecasting. So those are the things that I'll point out.
Dilly, did you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I think what we're finding is knowledge, organizations, individuals understanding what social investment is, the different types of social investment, the various types of models, and also not every model, social investment doesn't work for everyone. You know, there's also something about that. Also finding, when we talk about barriers, some of the barriers, think about education is around debt and loans, you know, around how loans can work for you. And I would say another barrier is around the threshold. Sometimes some of the thresholds by the organisations who are releasing the funds are a bit too high. And sometimes there's a mismatch between the organisations or communities they want to reach and the mechanisms by which they're trying to reach them.
Okay.
Trying to do that.
Thank you. Ishita, I just wanted to bring you in and ask from your experience on good finance, and obviously having set up investment communities of the future, what barriers that you've seen firsthand, and also as a social entrepreneur yourself?
Yeah, also, I mean, definitely echoing what Caroline and Dilys have already said around knowledge, but alongside the knowledge is actually the capacity to build that knowledge and the time to build that knowledge. So what we see a lot of, especially with social enterprises or charities, they're either led by people experiencing marginalization or supporting communities experiencing marginalization, is the past few years of pandemic, Brexit, cost of living crisis have put a real strain on the capacity of organizations. So it's allowing and finding that time and space to, but for the leadership to kind of build that knowledge. And on the flip side, something that we see from social investors equally is the knowledge around different markets and different communities. And like Dilys touched upon, definitely some kind of criteria around either legal and governance structures or turnover thresholds can also sometimes exclude particular types of businesses and communities. So I always say that there are lots of different tools and programs that exist to support you to build that knowledge. But I think recognizing that capacity has been a real challenge in the past few years, and a real blocker to building some of that knowledge is also really important.
Thank you. Olivia, I believe Neve Goggin has a question.
Hi there. I want to ask Dilys, I think one of the things I'm really interested in is how we bring people into social investment who don't necessarily have an investment banking or retail banking or accountancy background. You can probably tell that there's a personal interest in it, in that that's how I came into the sector. And I think if we can't open it up so there are people who are outside financial services, it means we're excluding a lot of really valuable experience and expertise. So I was wondering if you had any thoughts about, your programs sound really great, but are there ways to bring in people who may feel that once you see investment in a title or finance, that's not for them?
Oh gosh, yeah, Neve, yeah, absolutely need just a diversity of experience and background, in terms of the social investment sphere, because it's the social sometimes that is missing, or we need a lot more of. In terms of how you bring people from outside of the traditional investment sectors into it, I think it's explaining. I mean, social investment turns a lot of people off. I'm finding, because not many people understand it, and so it could be just by explaining, and as we're finding out, explaining what social investment is and what it looks like. We're finding, in terms of building that incubator fund managers program, that's really important to us, and that is a catch and a possible way to do that. But really would love to pick up with you, Neve, on that, in terms of your background and how you came into the social investment space.
Be delighted, Dilys. Thank you.
And it may also mean as well, within sets of looking at fundraisers, bringing fundraisers into that social investment space, like training them up to be the next fund managers.
Great.
Thank you both. And yeah, just as a reminder, we do have the opportunity to network later on, where you can actually have a one-on-one with people on tables, so you can always catch someone you want to have a direct conversation with. Olivia, do you want to move who you want to ask?
Sorry, Fayyadh, do you mind just repeating that? I think my internet.
Yeah, so so we've got a request from Jerry, who wants to take the stage to ask a question.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is really interesting to me, and I think Fayyadh, we had a discussion at the live event, and Dilys, I've spoken with Kunle about some sort of racial justice work that we're doing, and I think the work that you guys are all doing in this space is amazing, and it's the sort of thing that we want to really work together with you guys on, because we at Money Any are a social enterprise. We are exploring social investment itself, but we're also doing what's called some racial justice work around, I think, two areas that this specifically covers, which is sort of access to financial products and services for diverse ethnic communities, but also getting jobs, generally, I suppose, in the finance sector, but also jobs through enterprise and stuff like that as well. And how do we kind of build the community's financial resilience, but also their ability to to develop themselves and develop their kind of their own kind of wealth in the communities that we serve. So I just wanted to kind of say that it's brilliant. I want to connect and will be connecting with you guys soon. So and also it'd be really good to connect with lots of people here in the room as well about that. So we're both interested from, like I said, the two angles as well. So very, very interesting, Dilys. A lot of what you were saying about some of the barriers there, and that was really, really, really interesting. And Caroline, it was great to hear your story of how that supported you, and Ishita, really excellent initiative there about trying to change the decision making structures. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to say that, and just kind of pre-warn you that I'll be harassing people soon anyway, so you'll be getting emails and stuff from me as well. I just wanted to connect with most people in the community, really. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thanks, guys.
So just wanted to move over to a question, a Q&A from Marsha. She asked around any advice in deciding the level of investment to request. like to probably ask Caroline, how did you decide on how much investment you needed for your organization?
So for us, the initial request was kind of like decided, because obviously it was the asking price for that particular building that we were looking for. But I did mention that later we then went back to request for more funds because we wanted to address another need. So I think it's probably just assessing the need, and then kind of like determining what you want to do. So depending on what you want to do and what you're requesting the funds for, will determine how much you're actually requesting. That's what I would say.
Is it okay if I build on that, Fayyadh?
Sure, of course.
So what we find at Good Finance through kind of the people that we speak with that take on social investment is that there tend to be a couple of purposes and reasons why it works really well to take on social investment. Like Dilys said before, it's not for everyone, and it's definitely one of the tools in your toolkit. But just really to echo what Caroline said about knowing the purpose of why you're doing it, what we find is when you've got a clear purpose in mind, like you want to build an asset, you want to grow a specific function of your business, you have a contract, but you need the working capital to deliver on that. Those are situations where social investment can be a really relevant tool. And in that instance, the purpose, your kind of scope for what you're trying to do with the social investment will help like determine and influence how much you need to ask for and why.
Thanks for sharing, Ishita. Just keeping conscious of time, there's another question that we have from Ismat in regards to if you had access to or knowledge of or capacity for social investment early in your journey as an entrepreneur, would you have done anything differently? And maybe throw this question out to maybe yourself, Ishita, if you'd like to start off on this.
I think it's a really, really, really great question. Maybe coming back to some of the things that we have already touched upon is really determining when the right time to use social investment is and when the right tool is. But one of the things that I think about all the time is, I guess, all of the elements and considerations that you need to make to be able to take social investment in the first place. So really thinking through, like, if you're incorporating your organization, what legal structure, what governance structure do you go for? Because that will influence what social investment you can take year on year as you do your company accounts, understanding your business model and what that means for turnover, because that will affect the kind of things that you have access to. And I'm obviously going to say this as the Good Finance project manager, but we hear from people all the time that will have taken on social investment. They didn't know about Good Finance at the time, and they'll come back and said, oh, I wish we knew about Good Finance because it would have made things so much easier. So there's a couple of tools on the website. There's something that we have that's called the Is It Right for Us tool. And it's literally like a 2-3 minute tool. And it will kind of do like a little diagnosis of your current situation and position, what you're looking for, what types of products could be relevant, and if it's right for you. So I think actually just using like the tools and the resources out there, and thanks, Olivia's just popped it in the chat, to be able to think really strategically about things, because I think quite often what happens is we hear stories from founders or people that want to take social investment, but then they're trying to like retroactively work things out, like what does my legal structure mean for it, or I'm currently at this turnover threshold, or so being able to like from the get-go think about being investment ready before you need to be investment ready, which I know is really difficult to do when you're also trying to like run an organization and everything else, but yeah, I think just being able to think long term is really helpful.
Thanks, Ishita. Thanks for sharing. Like to bring maybe yourself, Caroline, in regards to that question.
Yeah, well, probably I would definitely say I wish I had known about social investment quite early on, obviously in our journey, because I think we kind of like self-funded everything that we did from the very word go, and it's been a bit of a struggle. So I think when I kind of like introduce myself, I say that I'm CEO, founder, director. So I've like had to do like wear like 7 hats, and where probably if I'd known about social investment, where I can put across a proposal of this is what we want to do, this is what the social enterprise that we want to do, and the social value, social impact, I'm pretty sure would have found an investor that would have wanted to work with us. So definitely, if I'd known about social investment earlier on, I think I would have approached things differently. And I think it's probably good time for me actually to get to know and understand it a little bit more, because of the way that we would want to progress what we're doing, especially with the ladies, especially looking at moving them on in life and moving them on to dispersed properties. So that's something that we would want to explore further.
Thank you, Caroline. That's really insightful to hear. I'd like to move on to a question from Iftikhar from All Saints Actions Network in regards to Pathway Fund. So can the Pathway Fund support the development of a geographical community of interest around grassroots organisations going on an investment readiness journey, featuring peer support along the journey? Would like to obviously invite Dilly to speak on this.
Have you read our pilots? This is exactly what one of our pilots is working to do. There are 3 programs, and we've chunked them up into blocks. And one of them is looking at investing in 4 organizations, looking at it geographically, so we can build that community interest of organizations. We're absolutely doing that for one of the pilots, and would definitely like to speak to you about that. In terms of the regions we're looking at, we have Nottingham, West Yorkshire, Greater Manchester, and Birmingham. And so, yes, let's talk. We're keen on doing that. That's the first phase of our pilot. And in terms of organisations, we're still open to speaking to organisations to join that pilot. Can I just quickly just wanted to add to the question before, on, would you have taken on social investment earlier had you known about it? I just want to say the legal point is really important. I'd always advise when taking on any form of social investment, or think out whether to reconfigure your constitution, always seek legal advice. If it's pro bono, please do it, or speaking to another organisation who has gone through it, always do that, because it saves you unpicking or closing yourself up to other forms of investment. And also to say that social investment also comes through individuals. In my early time career, international development, community development, this was 10 years ago. We had individuals, entrepreneurs who were making loans out to, I was working in a small organization in Ethiopia, and we had business people making loans to us, loans so that we could own our own building, so we could own the school as well. And so just wanted to make the point that there are individuals out there who've been doing it for a long time.
Thank you, Dilly. Thanks for sharing that. If I could bring back Neve to the stage, I believe she wants to mention something around the Reach Fund. Olivia, is that possible to help on in terms of getting Neve on stage?
Sorry, Fayyadh. I don't think Neve's got her hand up anymore, but she just wanted to flag the Reach Fund, funded by Access. So she's popped a link in the chat there, just to highlight that.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. If anyone would like to take the stage to ask any questions to our speakers, please feel free. Don't be shy. We're happy to have you up and share your questions. Or you could also pop your questions on screen. If not, we do have another question from Isma, and that is: did you feel like learning all of this new information, building capacity, would take away from your resource, from your core purpose of work? And if so, how did you deal with this? And what would you advise to entrepreneurs starting out? If I could throw this question out to Caroline again.
Yes, I think that's a very, very good question. Probably, I should have actually mentioned this as probably as well as the barriers. To the first question about the barriers to accessing financing, it is quite there's quite a lot. So I'll probably give an example and say when we reached out for the investment. So I think it was around about January or February time. Couldn't respond till about April because of the amount of work that we have. Obviously, the work that we do is quite demanding, so it does take quite a lot of time to actually be able to respond to the request and make time for the meetings and stuff like that. So yeah. But I think once you get the ball rolling, it's quite easy. But it does take time, obviously, if you don't have any dedicated resource that actually works in the investment in your organization. So I don't know what your setup would be. Is that a small organization? Is it a big organization, or is it? So yeah, I hope I do answer your question. That it does take time, but I think. Once you make the time for it and you get the support, then it makes it easier.
Thank you, Caroline. Dilly, I think it would be quite interesting to hear from your perspective on this in terms of for organisations and leaders that you're in touch with, and their feelings and thoughts around learning this new information and how it potentially impacts their normal day-to-day work.
Yeah, it's always because whenever you're delivering new work, there's always that fear that it will move you away or organizations from their core purpose. In terms of how you deal with it, really, I'd say it's about the organization itself more widely than even the social investment piece. As an organization, do you have a plan for your activities, for your organization, what it will deliver, what its purpose is? It starts from there. Do you have the capacity to do that function itself? And that's what I always advise and work organizations through. To start with what they actually need to deliver their work, because then that would answer to whether the information, I don't know if it's new social investment products, it will answer whether you actually need to engage with it or not. And I'd also recommend also partnerships, because you might find organizations who complement your work doing delivering on similar areas. My advice would be to those starting out would be first look at what it is you want to deliver. Some people call it a theory of change. Some people call it, your mission plan, whatever you want to call it. Start with that. What is your purpose? What is it you need to deliver? How do you want to deliver it? And what resources do you need to make that happen? Address all of that piece first.
Really helpful to hear that from yourself, Dilly. And Ishita, I'd like to bring you in on this, but I'm guessing both Caroline and Dilly have already probably covered most points. But as someone who manages the programs for Investment Communities of the Future, but also our Social Investment and PIC program, how do you feel participants who come from these frontline organisations who have quite limited capacity when it comes to taking on new information? How do you feel, from your experience, how have they coped with learning new information?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, it is such a good and valid question, and like you said, a lot of what I would have said has definitely been touched upon. I think it can be a real challenge, and it also really depends on the organisation itself. So sometimes we'll see micro organisations or small organisations, even less than 10 people, that perhaps have really ambitious goals that they're delivering on, or kind of constantly responding to changing times and changing environments. Like over the past few years, and I know I had said this already, but so many organizations that we've been speaking to have had to put quite a lot of time and energy behind just working out how to pivot, how to adapt to lockdown, how to adapt to a changing climate, how to whether it's changing their services or enabling their staff. The kind of recent years have really stretched capacity for organizations. And then it can be sort of a challenge on top of that to be able to kind of hold time and space for all of the other things that need to happen, especially when it comes to considering sort of financial resilience and sustainability. I think some really good tips, definitely reaching out to your support network. If you have a trustee board or an advisory board, that's also a really important source of support and of capacity. And something that we try and do at Good Finance is try to make kind of the learning and the support that we have quite flexible and adaptable. So in our sort of e-learning programs that we have, they tend to be sort of go at your own pace. So like with Investment Communities of the Future, it's a 12-week program, and over that 12 weeks you can go at your own pace with the modules. But if you were ever to reach out to us and say, really struggling with capacity, is it okay if I do this after this period? Our response would be yes, absolutely. Because I also think as kind of like the people that are designing or providing the support, we've also got to be really conscious and mindful of being as flexible and as adaptable as possible to allow organisations to actually deliver on their core, and then to do this stuff when they can and when they're able to. And I think the vast majority of organisations recognise that this is also really important for like future sustainability. There's just never enough hours in the day, is there?
Oh, definitely, and I guess that's the toils and troubles of being a social entrepreneur. Thank you, Ishita. I'd like to bring on stage Ismat, who has a question.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for really interesting presentations and questions. I've been hogging the chat and the question and answers a bit, so I'm going to make this the last one and open it up for other people. But I just wanted to follow up on my previous question and sort of bring in the addressing imbalance part of this, because as an entrepreneur from a minority, as well as having lots of peers in the space, I just wanted to say that I was sort of responsible for raising social investment and happened to do so successfully, but it took up all of my time. And in a way, I've seen lots of fellow entrepreneurs especially from Black and minoritized communities, who are extremely passionate about what they do, and the whole process of sort of raising investment takes them away from the reason they started the enterprise in the first place, and keeping them, it's takes them away from what they're really passionate about. To the point where, for example, lots of the fellow entrepreneurs and companies that I work with have even considered taking on a sort of chief financial officer to help them with this process, and specifically a white chief financial officer, because they have access to, of course we all know this, they have access to spaces that others don't. And I just wanted to get the imbalance perspective on this problem from all of you.
Olivia, actually would like to bring you on this from yours and ours experience on running the program. What has been kind of the key imbalances that have come out from our communities that we've been working very closely with and listening to?
I think, Isma, all your points that you've made are all kind of things that we hear quite a lot from entrepreneurs, in terms of kind of capacity and in terms of I guess those networks. And unfortunately, it does seem to be a case, a lot of it's not what you know, it's who you know, that gets you kind of through doors. And there are definitely barriers. And as you say, I think a lot of entrepreneurs are making such a huge impact, but they need that additional kind of wraparound capacity support, both to kind of build resilience within their own organization, but also to have then the capacity to even kind of go through the social whether it is the social investment or simply the grant application process, because it's time consuming. You're not guaranteed kind of that success. And I think, it's very positive that we are seeing kind of more interventions throughout the sector. Change is definitely happening slowly. And I think that's a big thing that we're trying to focus on through the Addressing Imbalance program this year, is really connecting the dots, because there's so many interventions that are happening across the sector, and whether that's the likes of the EDP program, the likes of Pathway and all the other kind of interventions that are really looking to strengthen kind of the support for racially minoritized communities and entrepreneurs who face barriers. And I think we're really keen to understand where we can collaborate as much as possible so that there's not work being kind of doubled up, but actually we're aware of kind of what's going on across the sector and we can best signpost organisations. I definitely, from the learnings that came out of the Addressing Imbalance Live event, and I know many of the people here today were at the event, but capacity was, I think, the biggest challenge that people find, as well, kind of knowing where to go, where to kind of who to speak to. And that's something that, again, kind of through these community events, we're trying to facilitate a space where people can make connections, where they can, you know, I know there's investors and funders on the session today as well. So I think definitely in the networking, if you spot an investor or funder, do have a chat with them. Do speak to them as well. With Good Finance, we are kind of constantly trying to understand how we can best support people and organisations within our network. So we do have that pre-investment support page where we can signpost to other organisations who are providing that support. As Ishita mentioned, we've got the investor directory and we are working on the advisor directory, which should hopefully provide some additional space around that. But I realise as well that the other speakers in the call are probably much better equipped to speak to this than I am, but from the Addressing Imbalance perspective, that's kind of my experience.
Thank you, Olivia. Dilly or Caroline, if one of you wanted to jump on this. Yeah, yes, Dilly.
Yeah, I'm very much similar to what Olivia is saying. In terms of Pathway, what we are here to do is to be that direct connector, you know, where organisations are finding it difficult, you know, Black and racialised organisations are finding it difficult to, you know, where do I go? Who do I speak to? That's pretty much what we're here to do, Pathway, as well as in terms of the investments that we will be making. Part of that is readiness support. So investing in, you know, capacity building, you know, costs money. So reimbursing organisations for their time, you know, investing in an additional member of staff if they're needed, you know, to plug that resource gap. Also to us, information should be simplified. You know, a lot of the information out there. We're hearing back from many organisations, entrepreneurs, that is difficult to digest and decipher. And so we're looking at breaking that down, you know, different forms really of communicating the different models. And also in terms of the connectivity piece, what we have found is a lot of organisations want to know, well, who are the Black and racialised philanthropists or investors out there? And so part of the work we'll be doing is to start bringing them all together, not all of them, but as many as we can find together, and to be that connector between the organisations, individuals, and those social investors.
Thank you, Dilly. That's really helpful to know. And I'm just checking if there's a question that's come through. Oh, no. I'd actually like to ask, but based on something that you've just mentioned, Dilly, in regards to actually language and how language is used within the social investment space, and how you've felt with the organisations and leaders that you've worked with, how they've kind of come to grips with the language or the terminologies or the thematics of understanding and actually getting through the space of social investment.
Yeah, I guess key highlights or some of the challenges is that you know, the language is very finance, you know, it uses all the technical terms in finance. It doesn't really, there's a gap really in terms of just some of the terms that the community, different types of communities use, or how assets are seen. There's also a gap in terms of you know, showing examples as to what this model actually looks like once it's applied. You know, a lot of it seems quite theoretical. And so, yeah, language is important. In terms of, if, you know, Pathway, we're focused on Black and racialised communities. And so we're looking at, okay, if you're looking at African communities, how do these communities conceive of loans? You know, understanding first how different communities see loans, how they are accessing it, how traditionally also, you know, they use loans, how also in terms of what ownership and assets actually look like and mean for different communities. Your building is one of many different tax assets. So yeah, in terms of going back to the language point, I think there's something about understanding the communities you're there to serve and reach.
Thank you, Dilly. Yeah, I think that cultural context is very important in consideration to social investment, especially when speaking with such diverse communities from all different backgrounds, and everyone has a certain nuance when it comes to social investment and how they take to it. In the chat, you've noticed that Ishita's put a link down for our jargon buster for the Good Finance page, which actually helps to demystify some of the jargon that's out there that can hopefully be easily understood. Just like to bring on anyone else who might have any other further questions. I believe we've got roughly 5 minutes left of this Q&A section before we go into the final part of our networking. But yeah, if anyone does have any other final questions that haven't been answered, that's a burning question that you'd like to answer, please feel free to step forward. Oh, and thanks for sharing that link, Ishita, in the chat in regards to the Reach Fund from Neve, which is a great example of where you can access grant support to become investment ready.
I think if we've no other questions coming through, then maybe we can head back to the networking lounge and people can pick up any conversations that they might have been having earlier on, or any further questions they'd like to maybe ask kind of one-to-one to speakers. I just wanted to say a huge thank you. Oh, sorry, Jerry's raised hand. Jerry, I'll bring you onto the stage in just a second. But I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Dilys, Caroline and Ishita for their presentations today and for sharing all the information. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to come along and talk about Good Finance and Pathway and Contento social homes. It's been really, really invaluable hearing your experiences and hearing kind of the updates on what's going on within the sector. Just for everybody in the all the attendees, we do have a poll. AirMeet is a relatively new platform for us. We are using it because of the kind of networking aspect, but we'd love to get your feedback. So if you can answer the poll on how you find kind of the platform, if it's been relatively easy to use, or drop me a message and let me know how you find it. We'd love to get your feedback. The session has been recorded, so we'll be sharing the recording post-event. And I would love as well, we'll do a quick survey just to get a little bit of feedback if there's any sessions or any kind of speakers or any topics that you'd like us to cover in future events. Our plan is to run 3 of these sessions throughout the year. So also once we've got a date confirmed for the next session, I will share that with you. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much everyone for joining today. We've got one final question from Jerry, who I'll bring back to the stage now.
Hi, yeah. My question was just about, I think you mentioned earlier about the sharing of contacts for those who give permission for that, because I know there's a lot of people on the call that I would like to sort of connect with, and also in terms of other events, there's definitely stuff that myself and some of the team would like to sort of be involved in for future meetings as well.
Cool. I think some of there is a function kind of on your profile that you can add your email address and details. So if anyone's happy to do that, please do add it on the platform, and you can kind of log back into the platform to connect with people. I can't share email addresses from attendees, but I will speak to the speakers after the session, and if they're happy for their details to be shared, I will of course share those.
Thank you.
No worries at all. Great. Well, what I will do is, if there's no final questions, we'll wrap up the session and we can head back into the networking room. As I say, the networking room, the session will end at 2 o'clock, but we will keep the tables open for anyone who wants to carry on any conversations. And thank you again, everyone, for joining. Look forward to seeing you all soon at the next session.
Thank you all.